So my name is Tori Hicks. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a second year university student. I'm 19 now, which is crazy. And I'm originally from Hanover, Ontario, which is in the middle of nowhere and nobody ever knows it. But I moved to Fredericton, New Brunswick in 2019 to start university. My earliest childhood memory, ooh, probably like going to family events and like still sneaking in a book and making my dad read to me because we have this huge ginormous family and I'm such a socially awkward type of person, and I was always like the only kid at family events for a really long time. I'm the oldest on my mom's side, so I would like make my dad read to me in secret so I wouldn't have to try and make conversation with the grown-ups. Oh my gosh. There's this book called Magic Glass, I think. It's by Diana Wynne Jones. And it's a really cool little book about like finding magic in a regular world. So I really love it. And it's looking through the world through stained glass windows. So we have stained glass windows in my house. So that was always really magical to me. I do. I have a little sister. She's 6, or no, she just turned 7, and she's awesome. She's the coolest kid ever. Definitely, it was. It's weird just because we do have such a big age difference that when I moved away, it was so hard for her and it was really hard for me. So that's sort of one of the only good things that's come out of the pandemic has been I've been home for most of it. So I've been hanging out with her every single day and playing and teaching her how to ride a bike and stuff like that that I normally wouldn't be able to do if I wasn't in Frederick, or if I wasn't in Hanover and if I was in Fredericton. Hmm. I don't know if she was one of my first best friends, definitely. I know that like when I was really, really little, it was actually probably before Anna was even born. So technically my first best friend was this little girl who lived next door to me, and like our parents had bought houses next door to each other just on accident around the same time, and then they both got pregnant at the same time. So like it was such a really cool experience for my mom to have like a friend right next door to her as she was having her first kid. And then we grew up like running across the yard to play at each other's houses. And it was just such a really cool experience for me. And then like eventually she moved away, like we grew distant, whatever. But then all of these years later, my little sister was born, and our new neighbors who live not in that house but in the house next to it um had a kid the exact same time. So now my sister has a best friend who lives right next door too. So it's such a like cool little universe thing that happened that we both had that similar childhood experience of having somebody right next door growing up. My best friend now is probably Callum Hunter. She's an RC student and I love her so much. We met first year on our camping trip and just like sat next to each other at the little orientation thing, and then sat next to each other on the bus, and then had bunks in the same cabin, and just have been like really close friends ever since. And I switched residences in first year and it was just so amazing. And then also in my hometown, my friend Mel, I've known since grade 9, and they are such an incredible person, and I love them so much. And like, we go on socially distanced walks together. So it's been really nice to be able to like still hang out with them, even though I'm in university in a different province. Now I get to like see them in person sometimes. But yeah, those are two like super important people in my life who I love very much and I miss very much all the time.
Yeah.
That's a really tough one. I've been really lucky to go to plays my whole life with my family. Um, the only one that's coming to mind right now is Thoroughly Modern Millie, which is like just a silly little play, but it's got really, really good tap dancing, which I was a tap dancer growing up. So I remember going to see that with my mom. And anytime they were tap dancing, we were both like, okay, this is the bit. Everybody has to be quiet so we can watch them tap dance. So I danced for around 13 years, and I would say I was a tap dancer for about 10 of those. My last 3 years, I don't think I did tap, but I've always like, I still shuffle off to Buffalo under my desk when I'm writing and stuff. Yeah. So, when I was in high school, I had been invited to go to this leadership conference in Toronto, and I almost missed the bus for it, which was like so crazy that I even got on. Oh no, it wasn't in Toronto. It was in Niagara, near Niagara Falls. So I got on the bus and it was with a bunch of kids that I didn't really know that well from my high school. And they had put me on because I'd gone on trips through the school for leadership before. So they sort of threw me in to the pack. Um, but when we got to this conference, everywhere was so busy and so hectic, and I don't do well in those environments. But I saw this one booth was not busy, so I went to go there, and that was the Renaissance College booth at UNB. So I signed up for their newsletter and I like entered a contest and I ended up actually winning an Apple Watch, which was insane. But then a couple of years later, when I was applying to universities, I got the newsletter for Renaissance College, like the whole packet. And I read it and it was just perfect. And it was totally everything that I was looking for in life and what I wanted to do with my life. So it was like midnight and I was crying and I'm like, Mom, I have to move to Fredericton and get into this university, but I probably won't even get in. They only take 30 students every year. And then I got in and it was insane. So it was just such crazy like set of coincidences that I almost missed the bus to go on this trip. And then I ended up moving to a different province. Like I still love English and I take tons of English for my minor and I still love drama and I take it for my minor, but I just I am learning every single day in my courses and I'm learning something new about the world and how I view the world and how I perceive myself and others. So it's been a really interesting time. I think it was like I don't know if it's an aha moment, but one of my prouder moments was we were doing this presentation um, for one of our classes, and the forum teacher, Nathan, came up and he was asking me all of these questions, and it was about immigration into Canada. And it's like, well, if you had two people in front of you, and one of them was like an orphan and the other was a murderer, and they were both trying to get into Canada, would you just let it be a random roll of the dice of whoever applied first gets in first? And I was like, that's the train question. I've heard of that. That's the trolley question. Like, so I was able to sort of be on the same level and really have a good discussion with him about ethics and like why the systems in Canada are set up the way that they are. And at the end, he was like, "You go, girl." And then he goes, "You're not a girl. You're a woman. I'm so sorry." And that was like the best moment of my life. And I was sort of standing there like, oh my God, I just like got praised by a professor that I look up to so much. That's crazy. For me personally, I don't think I'm going to have my passion be my career. And I just don't think that's something that's ever going to be for me because my passions are stuff that doesn't often make people money, unfortunately. And I've always been sort of a realist when it comes to this. So I know that I can love these things and that I can love doing them. And I can love doing them while doing something that makes me money, that's a day job, and then have them to fall back on at the end of the day. So I still don't 100% know what I'm going to do for a living. Right now, I'm thinking about going into funeral directing, which is very different from anything that I'm passionate about, but it's something that just has really captured my interest lately. Who knows? I thought I was going to be a psychologist for like 5 years, so who knows? Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm still going to read and I'm still going to dance in the aisle when I'm getting groceries. Like, I'm still going to be the same person. I'm just also going to work a job at the same time. Well, um, in high school, I was like, I'm going to be a psychologist, and I know this. That's just what I'm going to do. I had like a 20-year plan. I was so set. I had like my entire life planned out. And then I took a psychology course in high school and I hated it. It was the worst thing ever. And I did super bad in it. And it was awful. And then I just didn't have any life plans or life goals from like grade 10 when I took that course up until now, which is second year university. And then in the pandemic, I've been watching a lot of Bones, which is not about funeral directing, but it like has a lot of death and stuff. And I saw like every once in a while there's a funeral director. And I'm like, they do interesting stuff. I'm gonna research into this. And I was doing research on it, and I'm like, oh, it's a 3-year degree, and you have to be really empathetic, and you have to be like really good with people, and you have to like be okay working by yourself, and you don't have to work in an office, and you work non like regular hours, which are all things that I love. And I was like, oh, this is a career that I'd be really good at and that I would like not necessarily enjoy because it's like it's sad. It's dealing with death every day, but it's something that I think that I would be able to create personal distance in it while also like doing something that actually really helps my community, something that's always going to be needed. Like there's people are always going to die. That's one of the constants in life. So it's like, oh, I'm going to look into programs at colleges that do this. A lot of different trains of thought went into that.